Welcome again, beautiful ones, to Spirit Speaks. We're once again engaged in a spiritually exploratory conversation. And today we're blessed to be with Sister Sameen Affaf, who, through the miracles of virtual technology, we've been led to each other by the Spirit. Sameen lives in Florida. I live in California. We've never physically met each other, but our souls are in communion and conversation. So we wish blessings on Sameen and all who are listening today. What I'd like Sameen to start our conversation with is her understanding and experience and exploration of how the inner spiritual life relates to the transformation of the outer world and why these are really one whole. Could you say something about that?
Yes, thank you, Jim, for having me in your space. It's such a beautiful thing that we've been able to connect this way, and especially across time and across space.
Exactly.
But thank you for having me. And sorry?
Keep going. Just keep going.
Okay, I'm sorry with a little bit of a delay, but yeah, that question of how my inner spiritual world has connected to the ways that I decide to walk in my outer worlds. For me, those are so intrinsically connected and inseparable, and I've never seen them as separate, right? I really truly believe that spirituality at its core is about interconnectedness, right? If we think of this idea of the spirit and the spirit being in each of us, and us being a reflection of that, then every living, the land, each other, to not be connected to one another is to be disconnected from the self. And I don't, the big questions of why are we here? What is the purpose? What is this journey about? I don't believe that that's something that can be done in isolation ever, right? We are in constant with one another, and to see oneself as completely separate from that great union, I think is so detrimental, and so much an antithesis of what we're supposed to be creating and doing with one another here in this space, on this earth, in this life, and in the next, right? Or however we want to sort of think of that. But for me, my spiritual upbringing has always been rooted in this idea of community and collectivity, and mutual aid, and how do we care for one another. And I think that's always hammered in, within my household, within my family. It was this idea of us, and that us started in the home, and then, was us as a community, us as a global network of souls, right? And so any work that I do, whether it is, this work in terms of revolutionary consciousness, in terms of liberation from any type of oppression, from any type of violence, for me, that is inherently spiritual. And it starts from that idea that I really believe that the harms that we inflict on one another are due to our spiritual disconnection. So yeah, for me, they're very much one and the same.
Well, I think this whole idea and actual experience of wholeness, and that when we engage in a spiritual practice, yes, it's about the development of our own soul's sort of path through reality,
right?
Whatever that is. But there's so many traditions, and many people are having the experience of when you engage in spiritual work, the ego is what is being so steadily, constantly removed or peeled back. And if that is what happens,
yes,
you learn, first of all, how false a lot of things are that you've learned or taken on, and that you actually really are not separate from other people. We have this notion that it's, you know, it's about me and my soul and my enlightenment. But this whole possessiveness is a dangerous and I think unhealthy and unhelpful illusion, and something that's perhaps taught to us from the culture and not from the reality of the inner world and the outer world as it actually is. I think what you shared is really eloquent and important. And if you could say a little more about perhaps the importance of how doing spiritual practice leads us to, you might say necessarily leads us to a revolutionary path of outer work.
Right. You know, and it's interesting as you say that, you know, like, what is the answer? How does that spiritual path lead us there? And the truth is, it's something that I just constantly working out myself. Right. I think that where do we get to that space of what does our own spirituality look like? You know, that looks so different for so many people. But at the heart of it, what you just said about removing the artificial and illusionary barriers, right? Those barriers that we've created between one another. What is it that I can do in my practice that lifts the veil between me and you? What is it that I can do? You know, how is it that I reflect on the world in such a way that sees me and you as one, right? And the harms that are inflicted on you as harms that are inflicted on myself. And so, you know, whatever that spiritual practice looks like on the day to day, it's sort of, yes, the reconnecting of you and I, right? The feeling of you and I as one. So, you know, that's what it is. I truly believe that in terms of revolutionary work, if we're talking about dismantling systems of oppression, we're talking about, you know, achieving racial justice, doing away with, you know, the extreme wealth inequities that we have seen. This all comes down to us not seeing one another as ourselves, right? And not seeing, it's sort of this sort of disconnection that the harm that's inflicted on someone else does not impact me in any way, shape, or form, when, of course, you know, we're all sort of organs of the same body, right? So that sort of spiritual disease inflicted on one body affects.
I wonder if you could say a little bit about
yes,
how your practice really works to build this consciousness. I mean, is it in terms of certain kinds of prayer or meditation? Is it about reading? How do you continue to sort of cultivate this in the way that you do your soul work?
You know, it's interesting. I've thought about where this came from, right? I've been reflecting a lot on how is it that we can we teach, you know, one another to have that sort of radical empathy and that collective consciousness? Where does that come from? And I think so much of it really did come from the home in which I was raised, and sort of that reflected from one another. So for me, keeping up that sort of awareness in my day to day has been truly making space, allowing space. There's so much noise, right, on the day to day in every aspect of our life, but allowing that space to pause and to listen, to hear, to observe, to see, to learn. Education for me has always been the key the key. It's the key to, our miseducation can be our oppression, and it is also the key to our liberation. But constantly recognizing that that learning process truly takes place from the moment that we wake up to the moment that we sleep, that the earth, the land, the people around us, we're constantly learning from and teaching one another about what it means to be here. So for me, the spiritual practice, yes, I would love to say that meditation is important. Prayer is very important to me. But that prayer doesn't necessarily take place on my prayer mat or, in a room by myself. That prayer takes place when I am outside contemplating the majesty of, creation around me. It takes place when I see someone else and I am able to witness their joy. For me, that's a form of prayer and meditation. And just really, remembering that to look outside myself, right? Of how small I am in the grandness of this space. And so what is my purpose here? But I think in terms of that spiritual practice, political education has been a big part of my spiritual practice as well. Learning about, the revolutionaries have come, the revolutionaries that are here, and really connecting to that purpose has really been a spiritual source of much power and much energy, is really connecting to that idea that I am here to alleviate harm and to make sure that I do not harm myself, and having that self-awareness. But yeah, I'm working out the kinks myself, Jim.
Well,
I'm trying everything I can.
It's an ongoing process. I think everybody who comes to understanding that spirituality isn't just about self as in ego transformation, and it's not about making myself into the best me, but the best we.
Yes.
This is something that people can easily talk about, but I think when you have an experience, it does happen to people sometimes when they're younger.
Right.
But there's usually some kind of a break or an awareness opening up that the transformation of the outer world is not just about ethics, but it's about it's not some sort of moral imperative, although it is that, but it relates to some very deep actual spiritual realities about existence itself, and that the path of life, taking the path that it does to transform what is so problematic about structures that human beings have made, and that what the creator intends is absolute total freedom and justice and balance and love. Those aren't just like sort of cliches and dreams and platitudes. They're things that you commit yourself to, and that becomes part of how one sees the world. So I think what you said about how there are things about meditation that are, for me, helpful. Learning to pay attention to breath and body, so that we get away from the like you said, noise or clutter. But I think that to really be spiritual entails this path to transformation of self and structure. So I think this is such an eloquent statement by you that this is something that all of our participants can benefit from. So I'd like to let this be sort of our initial installment here. And I want to say peace and blessings and gratitude to you for what you've shared on this. Thank you.